So Candace, when
Yes.
I guess where did your spiritual journey start? I'm assuming it was as a child. So do you want to just kind of take it from there and we'll go from there?
It's funny to kind of think about it as I reflect on my life. Hmm. First, the thing that stands out the most to me as I look back is this constant, like, core, like, sensitivity that I carried. Um, for many years, I felt like this was a curse in a lot of ways, this ultra sensitivity. I always had this feeling of vulnerability that we were talking about earlier,
Mhm.
almost like my heart or my chest was turned inside out. And I came into the world that way. And the world seemed so harsh. As I got older, I didn't realize it was almost like I came in naive, thinking that everybody would love each other and be kind to one another
Yeah.
and help each other. Like it didn't. Um, I think that's always been what was always my biggest surprise, that it wasn't. This is a world of duality, and I wasn't supposed to experience just this open-hearted kind of feeling or experience. I'm grateful that I have that, because I feel like that's what brought me back to myself as I came full circle with that journey. But in the beginning, it wasn't always easy, that's for sure, being this sensitive. And what I mean by sensitivity as well is this recognition of what people were feeling around me. It was like I just knew what was going on without adults telling me what was going on. And I could sit in someone's presence and I would just get this download of information about their lives, about their insecurities,
Wow.
about what their desires were. And so I'd start having these conversations as I got older, like, you ever tried doing this and that? And they're like, I've been thinking about that, or I've been wanting to explore this or explore that. And it was because I was tapping into their hearts. Like, what was it they really wanted to bring forth, or those particular gifts they were really trying to bring forth in their lives. And I remember feeling that from the time, for as far back as I can remember, far back as I
Wow.
can remember. The other thing was that my mom used to say that when I was a baby, that she would go to parties and get-togethers with families and friends, and that people, and she would always take me. She's, a lot of people wouldn't take their children to like these get-togethers because they live with babysitters or whatever. She goes, I never thought about not taking you. You were always my soul traveler, and I'm so close to my mother, and I'm so grateful for my mother. She's a wise woman, and I have wonderful parents. My dad's wonderful too. I would say that the wise woman healing gifts come probably from my mom, and the teaching aspect comes from my dad.
Oh, that's cool.
Um, so it's kind of interesting, but very spiritually open family. Um, they did not feel comfortable in organized religion. And so the exploration of their spirituality and different belief systems, this was always conversation in my house. I was always surrounded by that information. And one of my favorite things to do was to go sit with the adults and listen in on the conversations. And but anyway, to go back to what my mom would say is that from the time I was a baby, she would take me to these get-togethers, and never complained, I never cried, and I would put my arms out for people to hold me. And she said that I didn't have that fear of strangers, and that she would hand people over and they would just hold me and they would feel so much better. So if they were feeling not very good physically, or they were feeling down, and she said
Wow.
they would hold me and I would touch their face, or I would
Mm.
just smile at them. And so I think that this energy, or me being a healer, has always been with me. It's just a natural energy that I carry, which I think everybody does. I just think that this part of myself was like wide open at that time from a very early age. So as I look back, I'm like, okay, well, then there is this, chain of events. It's like it's always been there. It's always been the essence of my energy or what I bring to the table, or for whatever reason of these big agreements that I have with my soul. But this is something I've brought in with me in this vehicle. So as I got older and I started to draw a lot, I love drawing. I would draw for hours on hours. And I was lucky enough to be homeschooled for about 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time I was homeschooled, I had a lot more quiet time than most children. So I went to public school, then I was homeschooled, and I went back to public school. But during that bracket of time, that was a very spiritual time of my life. And there was a pivotal year right around 11 years old where I decided to become vegetarian. And it was a month before I turned 11. And I had this deep love of animals. Like, I am obsessed with animals and nature.
You have like so many animals to attribute to that. Yes, I could definitely see that.
So I can relate when you told me that you're laying on the ground. I'm like, of course she's laying on the ground between sessions.
There's nothing weird about that. That's
normal.
normal.
That is normal. So anyway, but and I think it's true. I think it's because I felt grounding, and I felt centering, and I felt energetically balanced when I was around nature and animals. And I felt this purity of spirit with animals and communicating and being with them, and being so highly sensitive. Their energy was not so harsh. And so I really leaned on the energy of animals in my life to help me feel safe and to help me feel grounded and centered, and same with nature. But I became vegetarian around that time because of my love of animals. That was the core reason. I couldn't even stand the thought of eating an animal. I just couldn't do it. It just broke my heart into a million pieces. And I was coming from that innocence of a child, and we had a family friend who was a vegetarian, and she was the one that exposed me to that idea, because I hadn't thought about it really when I was younger. But anyway, during that time I was drawing a lot, and I drew everything with auras.
Wow.
Like, I look back at it now, and I thought, my parents could have looked at that and thought, what a strange child. She's drawing halos and auras around people. And we had our family friend, they had a middle daughter who also drew auras. And it was interesting because she and I really had this kind of understanding. It was like when she was showing me her pictures, I knew what she was talking about. And when I'd show her mine, she knew what I was talking about. That there was energy around the plants. Like, I would draw them around flowers and draw them around people and objects, like, all the time. So, but now I still have that art book. My mom kept it. And here's a bunch of pictures just of auras and halos around people. And I thought, that is interesting. And right around that time, I drew a picture of my higher self as well. And I have that in my sanctuary at my desk as a reminder from my young self of who I am, what my higher self looks like. So it's kind of an interesting loop, considering the work that I'm doing right now. But
that's beautiful.
Yeah. How weird is that, right?
I love that, because it's like, that is so true, is that the things that we are most passionate about, the things that come so naturally to us, are what we experience as children. Mm-hmm. It's like something that's part of us, engraven in us. And as children, our hearts are wide open. And as we get older, we close our heart down because of the world or how people perceive us, what it looks like. And so I love that, like, even at that young age, is like, you were so drawn into that space. And I love that your parents supported that.
They did 100%.
That's so
They
amazing.
would allow me to draw for hours. I'd finish my schoolwork and then I would just draw, or I go spend time in nature with my brother. But I realized I was meditating and I didn't even know it. And I would say that was a time in my life, besides at this time, where I feel like I really am expressing my authentic energy to the world and to life.
Absolutely.
But I would say that was such an authentic, empowering moment in my life. And I was only 11 years old. But then again, it makes sense in the sense of healing, where when we think about like our journey works and how there is a journey, there's pivotal journeys actually, where you visit the lower world and you visit your inner child. And those journeys are so pivotal to healing and empowerment, because people realize when they reconnect with that inner child within them, that was when they were most authentically expressing themselves.
Absolutely.
And so it's like they almost like it goes back to like that scripture the Lord said, you must be like a child to enter the kingdom of heaven. It's almost like as an adult, when you get domesticated and you come into forgetfulness, the way back to yourself is through your inner child, and there's the door. So it kind of
Absolutely.
does this like complete circle, you know?